You open your feed, and the noise is absolutely deafening. You see massive AI breakthroughs promising a total technological utopia. Meanwhile, half the internet screams it's a catastrophic, impending bubble. As a working professional, you probably feel stuck navigating this chaos. You're terrified of missing out, but terrified of losing everything. We're going to decode the absolute truth in this explainer today. Are we in the biggest tech bubble in human history? That's the exact question causing so much deep anxiety right now. You hear it constantly at work, online, and on the news. But the true answer doesn't come from tracking simple user numbers. The secret actually lies in a hidden, centuries-old framework used by top-tier investors. They use it to quietly see right through the market's endless hysteria. We're going to completely reframe this conversation right now. Notice the stark contrast between these two warring ideas. On one side, we have the endless, exhausting demand debate. It's built entirely on user growth, wild hype, and loud noise. But demand is a tricky metric that can easily lie to you. Now, shift your attention strictly to the supply reality side. Supply takes real, massive, upfront capital that you absolutely can't fake. Supply dictates the cold, hard reality of our shared economic future. And that brings us to a truly staggering, undeniable number. $725 billion. That's the projected amount big tech is spending on AI this year alone. It's a nearly unfathomable sum of upfront, hard capital. When you see a number that large, your brain naturally struggles to comprehend it. You might just scroll right past it without a second thought. But you absolutely have to stop and grasp the sheer magnitude here. To truly visualize the scale of this massive investment, let's break it down. It equals $2 billion spent every single day. That's $83 million burning every single hour. It's $23,000 vanishing every single second. Just in the short time you've been watching, millions have been spent. If you spent $1 million daily since the Roman Empire, you still wouldn't match this massive pile of cash. You might think artificial intelligence is an entirely unique, unprecedented situation. But history often rhymes with devastating, highly predictable financial accuracy. Brilliant, world-changing technology frequently triggers massive, destructive, speculative bubbles. A recent study looked at 51 major tech breakthroughs over almost 2 centuries. They found that 37 of them triggered massive financial disasters. Innovations like the television, the automobile, and the internet all followed this exact, brutal pattern of immense wealth destruction. To see through the modern noise, we must travel back in time. We need to look all the way back to the 1700s. Adam Smith observed that when rich merchants enter the same trade, competition destroys profit. 3. Money naturally chases high returns everywhere it can possibly find them. But that very same fierce competition ultimately crushes those exact returns. When immense capital floods a shiny new space, the margins inevitably, painfully compress until the weakest players simply cease to exist. This brings us to a modernized framework born from Smith's brilliant observation. It's widely known as the capital cycle theory. It focuses strictly on capital flowing through the supply side of an industry. It completely ignores the easily manipulated noise of user demand. It operates on one absolute, unbreakable economic premise. Returns are driven entirely by supply, not by demand. When you track the capital, you track the undeniable truth of a financial bubble. There are 4 core principles governing this brutal economic cycle. Principle 1 is the flood. Capital aggressively chases the highest possible returns it can find. A shiny new technology appears, and investors blindly pour billions into the supply side to capture early market share. It feels like boundless optimism, but it sets the stage for disaster. Principle 2 is the boom. Competitors frantically overbuild to keep up with the initial hype. Massive excess supply enters the market. Infrastructure rapidly scales, and returns begin to slowly, quietly slip away. Everyone thinks the good times will never end, even as the math silently fails. Principle 3 is the collapse. Oversupply inevitably and violently crushes the entire market. Prices fall rapidly, margins evaporate entirely, and fortunes vanish overnight as credit completely dries up. The music stops playing, and the weakest companies are instantly wiped out. Principle 4 is the inheritance. Smart investors finally step in to buy highly discounted assets. They confidently walk into the resulting wreckage, purchase vital infrastructure, and acquire the future for absolute pennies. They reap the massive rewards without taking any of the initial, fatal risks. Billionaire investor Howard Marks perfectly captures the extreme danger of that boom phase. 4. During these massive run-ups, people become completely intoxicated by the soaring positives. They confidently convince themselves the old rules of history simply no longer apply. They use the 4 most dangerous words in all of finance. It's different this time. They loudly argue that historical valuations no longer matter because the underlying technology is profoundly revolutionary. But you must remember that the cold, hard rules of economics never actually change. We can instantly prove this framework by looking right at our own history. 5. Consider the 1830s railways, where massive overbuilding led to duplicated, entirely useless routes. Think about 1990s fiber optics, where 85% of dark cables sat completely unused. Look at 2010's shale oil, where immense oversupply crashed prices down to $30. 1830s railways, 1990s fiber optics, and 2010's shale oil. Every single time, massive, unchecked oversupply led to total financial collapse for the original builders. Consider the massive, terrifying imbalance happening in the markets right now. Harvard economist Jason Furman ran the hard numbers for early 2025. 6. AI investment makes up just 4% of our total GDP, yet it accounts for a staggering 92% of total U.S. economic growth. Our entire economy is currently propped up by this massive AI buildout. If you strip AI away, the economy is barely growing at a microscopic fraction of a percent. Remember how user demand can so easily lie to you? Here's the manufactured demand loop driving our current tech market. NVIDIA funds OpenAI. OpenAI pays Oracle. Oracle buys NVIDIA chips. It's a manufactured, incestuous circle of corporate cash. Companies are creating the appearance of end-user demand just like telecom giants did in the 90s. Every time the money changes hands, it gets counted as brand new, explosive organic growth. This incestuous money loop is entirely designed to validate wild growth narratives. Vendor financing creates a total, blinding illusion of massive market demand. Equipment is heavily sold to customers who can only pay because the seller financed them. It props up revenue temporarily, making balance sheets look incredibly flawless on paper. Eventually, however, the easy credit dries up, and reality always painfully catches up to the hype. Look closely at the absolute eye of this gathering financial storm. Leaked financials reveal a massive $38.5 billion loss for OpenAI. 7. That's nearly 8 times the loss they recorded just the previous year. The arrival of massive competition from Google and Meta has completely changed the landscape. It's caused their operational expenses to violently skyrocket in a very short time. The boom phase is shifting rapidly and painfully into the dark collapse phase. Notice the steep, terrifying drop in early financial returns. OpenAI's marketing spend jumped over 400% in just one single year. 8. It quickly hit a staggering $5.7 billion. They now have to spend an enormous 44% of their total revenue just to keep people using their product. When returns slipped this drastically, it proves the capital cycle is violently accelerating. This is the exact, undeniable cost of the boom arriving right on schedule. We're already seeing severe early cracks in the wider tech market. Chipmaker Broadcom recently offered slightly soft financial guidance for the next quarter. Following that minor news, they lost $300 billion in market value in a single day. Being slightly less than perfect costs hundreds of billions of dollars instantly. It's a massive tell that we're looking at an incredibly fragile, overheated market where the absolute smallest cracks are completely devastating. In every single tech cycle, there are pioneers and there are settlers. Pioneers take the brutal arrows, absorb all the financial risk, and bankroll the massive supply. Settlers simply wait patiently and walk in later when the dust has entirely settled. They take the cleared land and buy up the valuable assets for absolute pennies. You've seen this brutal dynamic play out your entire life, whether you realize it or not. Let's ground this pioneer metaphor with some very familiar historical examples. In search, Alta Vista and Lycos bled cash as first movers, while Google quietly inherited the earth. In rideshare, Sidecar fought all the expensive legal battles and entirely drained their initial funding. Uber and Lyft simply copied the proven model and reaped all the massive financial rewards. The first movers build the vital infrastructure, paying for it with their literal survival, only for the second movers to walk into the wreckage and inherit an empire for pennies. You need to stop arguing about the AI demand bubble entirely. You must ask yourself exactly where you stand in the brutal reality of the capital cycle. Are you blindly betting on the pioneers taking the arrows, or are you patiently waiting for the massive inheritance? Stop following the noisy crowd and start tracking the quiet, undeniable flow of capital. Build the patience to wait out the storm so you can inherit the future.